Good evening. Tonight we are going to talk about what differentiated instruction is. It is where you make adaptations in the classroom for your students who learn differently. Um, we want everyone to learn effectively regardless of the differences in their abilities. So we acquire content, we process, we construct, and we make sense of different ideas. And we do this in many different ways. Um, so that every student can learn. They can learn at their own pace with their own skill set, and they can all achieve. Um, the ways teachers instruct using different methods, it varies because teachers want to be able to teach one student, but teach a group of students possibly, depending. There are four elements that we can use in a classroom to do this. There is readiness, interest, and a learning profile. Sometimes these different instructions help a lot. So teachers can prepare their classrooms with differentiated instructions, content, what the student needs to learn, and how the student will access the information. This could be on an iPad, this could be on a computer, it may be visual up on a smart board or a chalkboard. It may be auditory. They may need you to read a story. You might have to change some of the ways you do it. Process. So these are activities in which students engaged in order to make sense of the master and to master the content. So we pick content, and let's say reading. You want to have different levels of books for the different levels that the students can learn to read on. This helps them be able to understand the content of the material. So products, this is where students can rehearse, they can apply, and they extend what they have learned in the lesson. So we might start out at a math table and we might be learning adding and subtracting. And once the adding and subtracting get done, we might have a computer program that they can go get on the computer, and they are able to work on their skill set, how they're learning, so that they move up in levels at their pace, at the level that they are learning on until they master the skill. But it's a game on a computer. So for a child who has difficulty, because math is a tough subject for a lot of people, this helps them to have fun, and it promotes the creative side of their brain because they don't really think of it as actually maybe doing schoolwork or learning so much as they're playing a game and they're having fun, but they're actually mastering a skill that will help them later on, and they can keep moving up in levels. And the learning environment. You want to be able to have your classroom set up in a way that is conducive for all the students. Some students may need like a quiet place where that they can just sit and they have to be alone. Some students like a group setting, and some students need to have a one-on-one with the teacher so that they can actually learn what they need to learn. And you want the classroom to feel like a safe, joyful, fun learning environment, but that it is created whole for every single student that is in there, and that they feel comfortable. You want the students to feel comfortable. So let's see some examples of some content. Like I said earlier, you're going to want to have varying levels of reading material. You're going to want to have varying levels of vocabulary and spelling. You're going to want to make sure that you can present your ideas both visually and auditorily, and sometimes maybe using reading buddies. That can actually help you when you're doing that. So process. So sometimes using some tiered activities through which the learners work with the same important understanding and skills, but process on different levels, support and challenge, and the complexity. So maybe for a gifted student, you're going to want the lesson to be a little harder so that they can dig into their mind and they can use a deeper skill set. For children who use hand-on support for students, maybe we're going to offer manipulatives for them. And then you're going to want to have varying times. So some students may need more time to take a test, some may not need others. You know, it depends. Like gifted students, you're going to want them to pursue harder topics, as where children who are not as well and they are struggling learners, you're going to want them to be able to still learn but go at a different pace. So products. So we're going to use rubrics to match and extend a student's skill level. You can allow students to work alone, work in small groups, or work on one-on-one, just like I had said earlier. And you also want to have students be able to give options and express how they learn best. Some students learn best on hand, some students learn by doing it themselves, and some students really just have to have where the teacher actually does the one-on-one. So your learning environment. We definitely want a variety of materials. We would like a routine to help students who are okay, but when the teacher's busy and can't help them right away, they can go on to what they need to do instead of standing around not learning something at the time. We want students to be able to move around, to go to different stations. Like I said earlier, there might be a station with computers. Maybe for math, a teacher uses Legos and they can build, and a student that knows that they need help with that, they can go to a Lego table. Possibly, you know, there's just a little spot in a corner that's a quiet corner where a student can go sit and they can read their book alone so that they can process what they're learning. You do want where students can work in groups also if they are doing group projects, but if a student does need to work alone, then we need to make sure that we have that in the classroom so that the student can work alone. Differentiated instructions looks like in a classroom. You're going to have a whole bunch of different approaches. There are going to be alternative assignments to meet the different needs of each student. You're going to want to assess your students on a regular basis just to determine their readiness level. Make sure that they are where they need to be and have them ready for them. If they are not where they need to be, let's adjust the assessments and the instruction to get on their level so that we can get them to master what we are trying to teach. There should be a wide variety of options for students to learn. Like I said earlier, computers, Legos, maybe pen and paper, having a quiet place, working in groups. There are so many different ways that you can help students do that. You want to make the lessons meaningful. You want them to be engaging. You want the students to participate. You want them to understand what you're doing. You want them to learn from you. And you also want to use flexible grouping for the students. So one of the questions that has been asked is, well, let me give some examples of what differentiating practices are not. So if somebody completely delivers their instruction by lecturing, this is teaching a class in a group. It is not accommodating students who have different learning styles and are not meeting students at the different skill levels. Grouping students on previous year's test scores is not differentiating teaching practices, because just because they had the same test scores, they may not learn the same. They may have different learning styles. They may be completely different just because they got the same test scores. And giving bonus points for classroom participation is not differentiating practices either, because participation doesn't reflect the mastery of their skill or their content. So here's some alternatives that you can do for delivering instructions, except instead of just lecturing. Maybe we can use some show and tell. Have the children talking, interacting with one another. Keep the children moving, and maybe some teachers some students may do better if they take notes. And maybe co-teaching with a class would be one way. So alternatives to get children to excel in a classroom that's a group. Okay, teachers need to have a flexible grouping. And what we mean by flexible grouping is that maybe the groups are temporary. Maybe they last an hour, a week, even a month. It's not permanent, but it's a way to get students to work together in a variety of ways. Teachers who learn to group and regroup students throughout the day make their job easier and make students more productive. Flexible grouping is a practical way to differentiate learning as needs dictate, because every student has different needs. No two students are the same. The benefits are teachers can use different strategies to meet academic, social, and emotional needs of the students, and allows teachers to zero in on individual students' needs when need to be. Now, giving bonus points. So let's see what we can do as an alternative. So if a teacher wants to give bonus points, okay, let's do it for extra credit assignments or a bonus activity that maybe the student did that had them master the same content as what you were trying to teach the student. And teachers may also give kudos for the children for class participation in this area when you're working on having children who are improving on their group activity. What you need to do, though, if you're going to do kudos, it needs to go across the board for every student if they do participate. But it's just something telling the kids, good job, you did great, you are participating more, and you are making an effort, and you are learning this, and I'm hearing it, and the whole class is hearing how you're learning something different. Differentiating teaching is something that a lot of classrooms are going to, because every child has a different skill set. They all learn differently, and just to teach every student the same and believe that they are going to learn the same, it just doesn't work. We have to have different standards for each child with the way that they learn and the levels that they are on. So by doing this kind of teaching, it makes it where every student is included and every student can excel and succeed. And we want to make sure that we are helping students academically, emotionally, and just getting them in there so that they know that we are molding around their needs and we are taking care of them.